For years, we've been told they're aliens, visitors from another galaxy observing us from above. But what if that's the greatest deception of all? Because ancient texts, especially the Bible, describe something else entirely. Flying wheels of fire. Beings not of flesh, but of spirit. Entities that descended from the heavens and left chaos behind. These aren't extraterrestrials. They're something far older and far more dangerous. Let's be honest, we've all seen the headlines. Pentagon confirms unidentified aerial phenomena. Leaked military footage shows crafts defying physics. And every time one of these stories breaks, the same question gets louder. Are we alone in the universe? But maybe that's the wrong question. Because here's the thing, this isn't a new phenomenon. Modern media might act like these UFO sightings are a 20th century discovery, but ancient texts, including the Bible, have been describing similar encounters for thousands of years. Long before the words UFO or extraterrestrial even existed, people were reporting beings descending from the sky. Bright lights, flying wheels, pillars of fire, beings not born of man, but of something else. The real question is this: why now? Why are world governments suddenly declassifying UFO files, holding congressional hearings, and slowly spoon-feeding us the idea that they are out there? Because distraction is the oldest trick in the book. If you want to hide the truth, you don't suppress it, you bury it beneath a more exciting lie. And the lie is that these beings are simply life from another planet. But if you go back far enough, past modern science fiction, past alien folklore, past Hollywood propaganda, and dig into the ancient record, you'll find that the earliest descriptions of these so-called aliens don't come from Mars or some distant star system. They come from Genesis, from Enoch, from Ezekiel. They are the Watchers, the sons of God, the fallen ones, who descended not in flying saucers, but in blazing chariots and wheels within wheels. They didn't crash land. They were cast down. They weren't here to explore. They were here to corrupt. And yet, in today's world, we've rebranded them. Hollywood made them visitors. Scientists call them interdimensional possibilities. But the Bible describes them as something far more terrifying: deceivers, beings that once rebelled against the Most High and now disguise themselves in a new narrative. This isn't just misdirection. It's spiritual warfare, hidden in plain sight, masked as science fiction. Think about it. Nearly every ancient civilization, from the Sumerians and Egyptians to the Mayans and Hindus, spoke of sky beings who brought forbidden knowledge, mated with women, and altered the course of human history. Why are those same stories showing up today, just with new names? It's because we're not dealing with aliens. We're dealing with the same ancient forces, dressed up for a modern age. This growing obsession with extraterrestrials isn't just curiosity. It's a slow psychological conditioning, a grooming of the collective mind to reject the biblical truth and accept something that feels more scientific, more advanced, more evolved. But these beings aren't here to evolve us, they've been here to deceive us. And the Bible already warned us. Strong delusion would come upon the earth, so that even the elect might be deceived. This is the beginning of that delusion. In the very first chapter of the Book of Ezekiel, something strange happens. The prophet records a vision so otherworldly, so visually overwhelming, that modern readers often skip past it or reduce it to metaphor. But what Ezekiel described doesn't sound symbolic. It sounds like an encounter. Let me read it to you. I looked, and I saw a windstorm coming out of the north, an immense cloud with flashing lightning and surrounded by brilliant light. The center of the fire looked like glowing metal, and in the fire was what looked like 4 living creatures. Ezekiel 1:4-5. Glowing metal, flashing lights, a storm descending from the sky, and then beings. These creatures had 4 faces, one of a man, one of a lion, one of an ox, and one of an eagle. They had wings, straight legs, and feet like those of a calf that gleamed like burnished bronze. Beside each creature was a wheel, described like a wheel within a wheel, full of eyes all around. What does that sound like to you? Because to a modern reader, especially someone raised on sci-fi films and government UFO footage, it sounds almost exactly like a spacecraft, a glowing craft descending from the sky, emitting light and fire, accompanied by inhuman beings with supernatural forms. But here's the catch. Ezekiel never called it a spaceship. He called it the glory of the Lord. This wasn't technology, it was divinity. And the creatures weren't aliens, they were cherubim, angelic beings sent by God, carrying his throne. So what does this mean for the modern UFO narrative? It means the real question isn't, are they aliens? The real question is, who sent them? Because the Bible is very clear. There are two types of heavenly beings. The ones loyal to God, like the cherubim Ezekiel saw, and the ones who fell. The fallen ones still travel between realms. They still descend from the heavens. But their purpose is not to glorify God. It's to confuse man. And if the true angels ride in glory, it's no surprise that the fallen would try to mimic that. Spiritual counterfeits, designed to look majestic, otherworldly, powerful, just like the crafts reported today. The deception isn't in whether something is flying through the sky. The deception is in what we're calling it. Ezekiel's vision shows us that the spiritual realm is far more complex, far more visual, and far more interactive than most churches are willing to admit. And modern society has rebranded the heavenly to make it feel alien. But Ezekiel wasn't the only one. Similar visions appear in the Book of Enoch and Revelation, and even in the life of Elijah, who was taken up in a chariot of fire. So what are we seeing today? Are these UFOs just new technology, or are they echoes of the same spiritual beings that have been moving through our skies for thousands of years? Because if the Bible is right, they never left. If you've made it this far, you're probably wondering, who were these beings that descended from the skies? The Bible hints at them, but the Book of Enoch names them. They're called the Watchers. According to the Book of Enoch, the Watchers were a specific group of angels assigned to watch over humanity. But they did more than watch. They intervened. They crossed a divine boundary. They descended to earth, not by accident, but with intention. And once here, they did the unthinkable. They took human wives. They taught forbidden knowledge, sorcery, warfare, astrology, root cutting, cosmetics, and weapon making. They elevated human sin by giving mankind secrets that weren't meant to be revealed. And from this union came the Nephilim, a race of hybrid giants, violent and corrupted, who nearly wiped out the ancient world. But here's where it gets disturbing. These Watchers weren't portrayed as monsters. In fact, Enoch describes them as luminous, powerful, and majestic. They appeared from the sky, descending onto Mount Hermon. And the people of Earth, back then, welcomed them. They were seduced by the knowledge, the power, the glory. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Because today we're doing the same thing. If a glowing being came down from the clouds and claimed to be from another galaxy bringing peace, answers, and advanced technology, the world wouldn't just believe it, they'd worship it. But these aren't aliens. They're the same beings Enoch warned us about. And their goal isn't disclosure, it's deception. That's why the Book of Enoch was removed from most versions of the Bible. It reveals too much. It exposes the real agenda behind these so-called visitors from the sky. And when you combine Enoch's warnings with what Ezekiel saw, with what Jesus prophesied in Matthew 24, and with the signs in the heavens described in Revelation, it all begins to connect. This isn't random. It's a pattern, a cycle, a spiritual playbook repeating itself, just with modern branding. And here's where you come in. If you're watching this and you're one of the people who's constantly digging, asking questions, and seeking out what others ignore, you're exactly the kind of person I built this channel for. I go deep into the ancient texts most people avoid, Enoch, Jasher, Jubilees, and more, and I turn them into videos just like this. But if you want to take it a step further, become a channel member. As a member, you'll get early access to every video I drop, Before the public sees it, members-only polls, where you get to vote on what I make next, and direct influence on the direction of this content. This channel isn't backed by some network or sponsor. It's just me and the ones who support the mission. If that's you, consider joining the membership today. You'll be helping spread truth, break deception, and keep ancient knowledge alive. Now back to the story. The Bible and the Book of Enoch both make one thing clear. What happened in the days of Noah will happen again. As it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be at the coming of the Son of Man. Matthew 24:37. But what were the days of Noah really like? They were a time of open rebellion, a time when the boundaries between heaven and earth were violated, a time when the Watchers walked among men, and the Nephilim, these giant hybrid offspring, devoured all that was left. It was a world full of unnatural knowledge, perverted bloodlines, and spiritual corruption. Now fast forward to today. We live in an age of extreme knowledge, where science is touching realms we barely understand, where global leaders are openly calling for contact with non-human intelligences, and where the obsession with the skies is becoming a worldwide phenomenon. But are we really just advancing, or are we repeating? Because in the Book of Enoch, the Watchers were judged. They were bound and cast into a deep prison beneath the earth, awaiting a final punishment. But Revelation describes a time when beings that were once restrained would be released. The fifth angel sounded his trumpet, and I saw a star fall from heaven to earth. To him was given the key to the shaft of the abyss, and from the smoke came locusts upon the earth. Revelation 9:1-3. Some interpret this as symbolic. Others believe these are demonic entities, possibly even the Watchers themselves, released in the last days under a new form. Now think about it. What better way to reintroduce these ancient spiritual enemies than by rebranding them as extraterrestrials? Imagine a global event where mysterious beings descend from the sky, offering peace, technology, or unity. The media would declare it the greatest moment in human history. Governments would align, religions would be challenged, the world would look to the sky for salvation, but behind the scenes, it would be the greatest deception ever staged. The return of the fallen, wearing new faces. The same beings that corrupted mankind before the flood, now welcomed with open arms. This is the setup for a false Messiah, a cosmic impostor. And when the true Messiah returns, riding not a ship but the clouds, many will reject him, because the enemy came first and looked like light. Even today, we're being conditioned for it. UFO disclosure is no longer taboo. The government isn't denying these things anymore. They're normalizing them. But they won't tell you the full truth, that what we're seeing may not be from another planet, but from another realm. The second heaven, the unseen spiritual dimension that the Bible has warned us about all along. The enemy's greatest weapon isn't power, it's perception. If he can get the world to desire his arrival, to celebrate his signs and wonders, then he's already won half the battle. But the Bible told us all of this ahead of time. It said false signs would come. It said powerful delusions would deceive many. And it warned that only those grounded in truth would be able to tell the difference. If everything we've covered so far is true, then the deception isn't coming, it's already here. We're living in a time when truth has become offensive and lies have become comforting. When people would rather believe in beings from distant galaxies than accept the reality of spiritual warfare. When ancient texts are treated like myth and science fiction is treated like prophecy. But the Bible warned us this would happen. For this cause, God shall send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie, that they all might be damned who believed not the truth. 2 Thessalonians 2:11-12. This deception isn't just about UFOs. It's about identity, worship, and authority. It's about who controls the skies, who shapes the narrative, and ultimately, who humanity chooses to follow when everything starts to fall apart. Because when these beings arrive, offering peace, unity, and enlightenment, most won't stop to ask where they came from. They'll be too focused on what they offer, and that's the trap. In the garden, the serpent offered knowledge. In Genesis 6, the Watchers offered forbidden secrets. In the end times, These beings will offer truth, but it won't be the truth of God. It'll be a twisted counterfeit dressed in light. They won't come as monsters. They'll come as saviors, as gods, as the next step in human evolution, and millions will fall for it. That's why this deception matters, because it's not just some strange end-time theory. It's the foundation for a one-world religion, a false messiah, and a world united under the rule of darkness. And while most people are watching the skies waiting to be enlightened, they don't realize that the real war is happening in their hearts. Because this isn't about aliens, it's about allegiance. This is why studying the forbidden texts matters. Books like Enoch, Ezekiel, Daniel, and Revelation weren't written for ancient times. They were written for now. Because what's coming isn't just political. It's not just technological. It's spiritual. And when the veil thins, when the deception reaches its peak, and when the line between heaven and earth is crossed once again, only those grounded in Scripture will recognize the truth from the lie. If you believe these so-called aliens are actually fallen angels, comment fallen angels right now. Not just to show support, but to help wake someone else up. Someone scrolling through the comments who's starting to question what's really going on.